Thanks again for being with us, everyone. I'm Katie Sawyer. I'm Senior Director of Donor and Community Engagement with the San Diego Foundation. And I'm just delighted to be able to facilitate a conversation today about such an important subject. Today, we'll be discussing college access, but really we'll be touching on the whole educational continuum from cradle to career, because we know, and the data shows us, that the work to ensure college access doesn't start with a college application, and it doesn't end with that first day on campus. We know that it takes a system of support that spans a much longer time frame in a student's life. So I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say that the importance of a college education cannot be overstated. But we know that kids and families in our community and others face unequal access to education based on factors like income, race, zip code, and more that we'll talk about in just a moment. And leveling the playing field would mean identifying those students that sit farthest from opportunity and creating an environment around them that leads to their success. So in our discussion today, we'll cover a few big topics. We'll talk about the education landscape writ large, who has easy access, who doesn't, and what are the challenges that our work needs to address. We'll talk about what works, how to create that environment both in and outside of school that puts students on a path to college success. We'll talk about what it will take and what it can look like to bring this work to scale to ensure that more students have access to programs like these. And as always, we'll talk about how we in this Zoom room can be part of solutions and how philanthropy and leaders can put our resources and influence to work. Just a couple quick logistical notes. You in attendance may have noticed we are in webinar view, so you don't have the ability to turn on your camera or unmute yourself, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. We're not going to save time for questions at the end, but rather if you have questions, please just enter them in the chat field along the way. So I'll either make sure to get them answered during the discussion by our panelists, or if we're running a little bit tight on time, I'll follow up with you afterwards and get you the information that you're looking for. I'm delighted to have with us a panel of expert community leaders who are absolutely dedicated to creating systems that ensure more equitable access to education and who are leading innovative and incredibly effective work. So we have with us today Sarah Bokeen, who is CEO of Barrio Logan College Institute, which offers after-school programming that breaks the cycle of poverty by preparing students to be the first in their family to go to college. Sarah has worked in educational access for over 20 years, and she's led the efforts to expand BLCI's work throughout the county. We also have with us Dr. Helen Griffith, Executive Director of Preuss School at UC San Diego. And she was also founding Executive Director of E3 Civic High and has over 25 years of experience as an educator and transformational leader. Preuss is a unique school on UCSD's campus, serving scholars who will also be the first in their family to graduate from college. And I do want to call out and celebrate that Preuss was recently named, not for the first time, by US News and World Report, the top high school in San Diego County, and one of the top high schools across the country. So yes, and Sarah, I imagine that folks in their homes, not on the Zoom screen, are also applauding. That is something that all of us in our community should be very proud of and grateful for. And our third panelist today is my dear colleague, the San Diego Foundation's own Pamela Gray-Payton. Pamela is our Vice President of Partnerships and Community Impact, and she oversees all of our impact work and the strategic initiatives that advance the quality of life in our region, including a broad array of educational initiatives ranging from early childhood to college access and scholarships. Thank you to all three of you for being with us today and for the important work that you do. So that is quite enough from me as introduction. We have a lot of ground to cover today. And to kick off our conversation today, I think it's important that we lay the groundwork. You know, before we talk about solutions, we have to understand the challenges that we're solving. So to start, broadly speaking, what are some of the factors that typically predict whether a young person is likely to go on to college? Dr. Griffith, do you mind if we start with you?
Absolutely. I'd love for you to start with me. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. The factors that predict college success, I would say number one would be self-efficacy for scholars of color. Do I believe that I can go? Do I believe that I earn the right to be there? I have the right to be there. Can I stand shoulder to shoulder with any peer? I believe that that work starts early in building self-efficacy for scholars to understand that, yes, you are brilliant, you're gifted, you're talented, you're destined to be great, and that you deserve a college education because it does open doors and it opens opportunities. It is a key that you deserve to be there. And I believe self-efficacy is very, very important, and instilling that just as early as they have their first breath of life, that you have the ability to succeed at high levels. I'll leave a little something for Sarah and Pam to share as well.
Fantastic. Yes, Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Yes, you're right, Dr. Griffith. It's very important that students believe in themselves, but we also know that the family environment is key to that success. Their surroundings, the belief that people at schools have for, that they can make it, that they really do start believing this early on. They start having these conversations about the expectation of going to college and what it will take for them to reach those goals. We do have, with BLCI, we do work closely with the families. I know Preuss does as well, to make sure that that family environment, that college going culture exists, not just at school, but at home as well.
And to add, the belief system must start with our educators. It must start with the belief that they are imparting to our scholars, we believe you can do this work. We believe that you are college material, that you are set up for success, and that you have a bright future. The studies we talk about with the Johns Hopkins University and American University talk about the fact that scholars of color particularly need to see teachers who look like them. They need to see counselors and educational leaders who look like them as early as third grade. It's stated that they are 13% more likely to attend college when they've had that experience, when they've had a person who looks like them educating them, who's also been through the ranks, and they see that they have achieved at those levels. And so it's very important that we build a diverse workforce and that we repopulate the teacher pipeline with educators of color so that they can bring that diversity to the table, but also that all educators share that same belief system, that same unconditional love and the high expectations and support that they impart to those scholars that sit in front of them every day.
I've seen stark numbers too about how many young people go through their entire K through 12 education without seeing a single teacher that looks like them. So that work is knowing what a key factor that can be in determining whether a student believes in themselves enough to see themselves as a future college scholar. Those numbers are stark for something that seems so straightforward. Sarah and Pam, do you have anything to add about how you're making sure that how TSDF and BLCI's work makes sure that students see themselves in the education environment?
I would add, Katie, that in addition to what both Dr. Griffin and Sarah have mentioned, that surrounding students with an entire tribe of supporters is critical. And both they and their organizations are doing that. So where a school system may not be able to or is not providing the student with that network, that support system that is so critical, having an organization like BLCI, having a school like Preuss, where the entire culture is surrounding the student to believe that they can, but to give them the tools that they need in order to succeed. at every level, because what we are doing here at the San Diego Foundation is not only helping support these organizations and getting students to college, but we want the student to get to college and persist through college. And so having a network, a community that is surrounding them, providing them with scholarship support when that time comes, to really take on the many, many challenges that come with being a college student. It isn't just getting there, it's being able to finance it and having the opportunity to focus on your academics and not worry about taking care of your family at home. Oftentimes these students are providing important support to their family network, but being able to give them additional resources to help them so that pressure is not so significant is also critical to what we are doing at the San Diego Foundation.
Yeah, thank you, Pam, because that is what we see at BLCI. One of the things that we know is having that peer support. When we look at our cohorts, our grades, they are surrounded, they are with like-minded individuals. They might not get this at other schools. Not everybody in their classes are interested in going to college, but if they're sitting in that workshop at BLCI and they're looking around and they're looking at the person at the front of that workshop leading the workshop that looks like them, that has gone to college, that will share with them their own personal experience going through college, and they have those expectations of them, it's key. And for us, we really do want to send our students to campuses across the country, but we really want to focus on the campuses that will support them, that have those support programs in place and the support system in place for our students to succeed. For us, it's so important that they have access to resources at each campus, not just from BLCI, because we do stay in touch with them throughout the college career, but we want to make sure they have somebody on that campus that's readily available to them.
Right.
Right. And you bring up a good point, Pam, about the village and the support, the 360. When we think about what the community needs to do to engage in education, typically we were siloed and we didn't partner well with outside of the community. But now we're finding that successful schools really are an open door in their community schools where they're engaging the partners outside. So when I think of our model at Preuss, where we have a strong mentorship program, where not only do individuals give of their treasure, but they also give of their time and talents to mentor a young person in their particular area of interest and their subject matter expertise, to impart that knowledge to those scholars so that they can break the cycle. They can teach them how to fish as opposed to just giving them a fish. And I think these mentorship programs can be replicated to have that impact at schools. And I'm sure BLCI does the same thing in terms of involving community members. But that mentorship piece is very, very strong in terms of building their capacity to be successful beyond college. So not just getting them there and graduating, but as Katie mentioned earlier, that cradle to career and making sure they get to, what I call the quality life wage, that we're preparing them for. And so a lot of people underestimate their ability to maybe tutor or teach, but they can be experts and share their subject matter expertise and mentor a young person along the way. We found that our mentorships have persisted for at least 20 years in some of our scholars that graduated in the first classes. They're still with some of their mentors now, and they're gaining financial literacy, how to make their money work for them, how to invest, how to budget, and those things that we should teach more in school, but that they're learning some of those things from the mentorship from those donors and those who are in philanthropy, that they're giving more of their treasure, but their time and talents.
That's great.
That's beautiful. So what I'm hearing is that some of the key factors are belief and a strong tribe around a student, and that we can be part of that village, that we can be part of that kind of community of support that helps young people understand, kind of see the possibilities and understand how they could fit.
Right. And I'm sure we'll move into the academic preparation later in our conversation, because that goes hand in hand.
One thing I do want to make sure to chat about before we talk specifically about your programs, as we're talking about a little bit about kind of demographics and students who may sit farther from easy opportunity, looking at Preuss and at BLCI both, could you give us a sense of who are the scholars that you serve? What kind of neighborhoods do they come from? What demographics? Who are your student populations?
So we are, I think our populations will sound very similar. We work with 100% of our students are the first in their family to go to college, meaning that really means that the parents don't have a 4-year degree, because that is where we can help families navigate what that path looks like. You know, as opposed to growing up in a household where the parents have gone to college, there is an expectation, there's some extra resources there. And that's where we fill in the space, right? We provide those resources for our students that to help them learn what the steps are, what kind of academic rigor they need to be involved in as part of preparing for college. For us, we are really working with a lot of the communities here in San Diego. Our greatest area that we serve is the Barrio Logan, Logan Heights, Central San Diego area. We also have a site in El Cajon, which we actually work with the refugee population there. We have a site in Chula Vista, and we also have a site in downtown. So for us, it's really about accessing those deserving communities where the need is the greatest.
So we're excited to also align with BLCI in that 100% of our scholars will be the first in their families to graduate from college. They are 98% of them qualify for free and reduced lunch. That means they live below the poverty level. When they enter our classes, it's at 100%. And we're proud to say that 2% have risen above the poverty level as their commitment, as their time at Price. And so that's exciting. We represent more than 41 zip codes in San Diego County. Most of our scholars have at least a 1-hour commute to the campus of UC San Diego, where we reside every day. The campus was placed there deliberately so that we could build that efficacy, right? So we're not a college going culture, we're a college culture. When they step off the bus at 6th grade, they're on a college campus. We are grades 6 through 12 because we believe in that longer runway. Getting to the scholars earlier, if I have my way, there'll be a Price Elementary with TK. We can start even earlier because that work does need to start earlier than 6th grade. And we have more than 17 languages represented on our campus. And 99% of our scholars are scholars of color. And so we want to really be, our first mission is to be a pipeline to UC San Diego. The school was really started in response to the elimination of Prop 209, which was affirmative action, of which I was a beneficiary at UC San Diego. I was a beneficiary of affirmative action. And so the pipeline was created because our chancellor is very committed to enhancing, moving the needle for scholars of color on the campus of UC San Diego. While they do go to other schools, I call them substandard, such as Stanford, Harvard, those places like that, as a joke. But our first hope is that they go to UC San Diego and become Tritons to move the needle here right in San Diego and keep the talent at home.
You know, those safety schools of Harvard and Stanford.
Exactly. Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Princeton.
And that does segue us nicely into what I really wanted to spend a lot of time on today, which is how it is that Price and BLCI have such incredible results. We know that only about 6 in 10 high school students in San Diego County go on to college. And that's not even taking into account the kind of unique student demographics that you serve, where typically in the neighborhoods that the kids that you serve are coming from, that rate would be much lower. Yet Price and BLCI both have a nearly 100% rate of students going to college, which is astounding and incredible and a model that needs to be replicated. So I want to talk about how and what makes these programs so effective. And Dr. Griffith will talk about Price first, but first I do want to show, we always like to get a sense of, see the young people that you serve. So I believe that we have a video loaded up about the Price Promise and the Price School.
The vision of the Price School is to provide a college prep experience and education for scholars who come from communities that have been traditionally underserved.
The reason why I was so excited about attending the Price School UCSD was mainly because it was talked about around through our community and through our neighborhood. Every parent wanted their child to go.
Here is where everybody matters, where everyone counts.
It's our opportunity to make sure that they will be the first in their families to graduate from college and to go back and impact their communities in a powerful way.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like our video froze. We'll pause for a minute and we'll let our comms team load it back up. So we'll go on and we'll come back to it if the video loads.
6 through 12.
Jenny, will you just pause it for a minute and you can let me know if it loads so we can finish the video, but we'll go on for now. Jenny, if you want to stop your screen share, sure. Dr. Griffith, again, we know that Price School was just named, and it bears repeating, the #1 school in San Diego County. What is it that makes your model so special and such a unique school environment for the scholars that you serve?
Well, I can't understate the fact that we are in collaboration. We are chartered by one of the top ranking universities in the world, which is UC San Diego, of which both Pam and I are alum. That's actually where we met, on the campus of UC San Diego, not just a few short years ago, right? So that's part of our success, in that we have the wealth, the resources, the campus, and all of the power that the institution brings to bear to the Preuss School. We have a longer runway. As I shared with you earlier, we start at 6th grade through 12th grade. And so we have that middle school piece where we get to bring our scholars who come to us just a little below grade level, and sometimes many years below grade level. And we have a focus in the first few years on literacy and numeracy, and making sure that we can build the skills to grade level or above by the time they go to 9th grade. We have a longer school year. As opposed to the state's requirement of 176 days, we have 198 days. We have a longer school day. So as opposed to 6 hours and 35 minutes, we have 7 hours and 30 minutes a day, which equates to an additional year of instruction over 7 years. So they've actually will have been with us 8 years, literally, in terms of the time commitment. We have an early warning system for academics and social risk factors. So that means we have intimate counseling ratio. We have 5 counselors on staff. We have 3 that are school counselors with a pupil professional personnel services credential. And then we have a marriage and family therapist, as well as a clinical psychologist. And then we have a school psychologist. So we have structures in place to address the socio-emotional learning and the mental health and wellness, which we know that scholars need support in that area if they want to, of course, have those successful tools to move on later in life. We also have a Saturday Enrichment Academy, where we bring our scholars to the campus on Saturdays with our certificated faculty, as well as tutors that come on board. And these tutors are also from the business community. Many are retired individuals, former mathematicians or engineers, former teachers that also push in to that Saturday Academy. But then we have an extensive tutorial integration where we use that to lower class size during the school day. These are veteran tutors, like I said, from the business community, but also from UC San Diego. There's a course that they actually take, they get credit for, and they push into the school day, and they tutor after school, as well as then online, because now that we have the online platform that we're using so much. In our heyday, I should say, there were more than 300 tutors that pushed onto the campus of Preuss in a week. And so it's a real strong part of the model. And not only do they get to see someone who's not much older than them, who looks like them, who's tutoring them, but also it helps them, of course, get that one-on-one instruction and to help build their academic capacity and their academic skills. So we also have one track where our scholars are in AP courses by trade, but it's not a choice where you would normally have a certain select group that would opt into AP. You actually can't opt in or out, it's for everyone. And so we have an AP track, and then we start pre-AP work. AP stands for advanced placement courses, which in some schools, universities, they get credit for these, it's college work. And we will begin starting UC San Diego courses, undergraduate courses on site next year, so that our scholars can actually feel and get that rigor from being having a UC San Diego course. And we'll give them obviously the opportunity to graduate, hopefully with a year's worth of college credit by the time they leave us in high school. And that's going to be a new integration for us. So that's just a little bit about our runway. I could talk, about our model. I didn't talk about advisory because I want to give Sarah a little time. I know we don't have all day, but there are a few other elements, advisory being one. And of course, our parent training and the professional development for our staff. But I'll save a little time for Sarah.
That's just incredible, Dr. Griffith. I mean, and I've heard you say that for your scholars, there is one track.
One track.
College. Yeah. Something so unique about the Preuss School and where you're located. So many kids, no matter where you come from, are so intimidated by that first day at college, being on campus.
Right. With the imposter syndrome.
They're on college campus since 6th grade on. Not one of them goes to school wondering if they belong on college campus because they've been years.
Yeah, they've had a seat in Geisel Library. They've been in the labs and they've been across the bridge into the athletics and arts. And we want to do more of that integration and more of the career preparation as well. We have every career imaginable on the campus of UC San Diego. We're one of the largest employers in the county. We're going to start to piggyback on Take a Triton to Work Day so they can understand some of the professions that exist that they don't know that are available to them as they pursue their passions.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I did get a note from our comms team that it looks like the video is backloaded, is loaded up on their screen. So if we want to try to finish the Preuss School video, we'll give it one more go.
School, it's one campus. We have high expectations here and a lot of embedding in students that the goal and purpose and mission of this school is to prepare you for college.
What makes the Preuss School so successful is that it provides opportunities and access to opportunities.
Okay, it looks like it's just loading a little bit at a time. So we will drop the link to the video in the chat because it is really it does a beautiful job of showcasing your scholars and your staff and and really captures what makes the school environment so unique and so supportive. Thank you, Jenny. Any of you can watch that video at your leisure. It is really beautiful. I do recommend it. And I want to talk to Sarah about it's not just what happens in school, but really robust after school programming too. So I am going to take over the screen share. We have a video featuring some of the recent graduates of BLCI programming from last year. So I'm going to try a screen share on my end to highlight some of your young folks real quick.
Week of March. Physically out of school, I've been like maybe 9 months.
Everything is online. Yeah. Goals for this year are to get into as many universities that I want to go to. Should I say all of them that I'm applying to or just like a couple? So the schools that I'm planning on applying to are UCSD, UC Santa Cruz, and UC Berkeley.
I've started my applications for the CSUs and UCs and some are coming up.
As well as CSU Chico, CSU Sonoma, CSU Humboldt, and SDSU, Santa Cruz, USD, Loyola Marymount University, UCLA, NYU.
Colleges in the East Coast, the UCs, USD, UCSD, and my top school would be Johns Hopkins.
Syracuse, Hawaii Pacific, Columbia, USC, Oregon State University, and Brown University. The OCI has already helped me because they were the ones that actually suggested me to helping the elementary kids with the tutoring and everything. And then this summer, we've had this opportunity to become a mentor to the 11th graders. And so that was really the moment I was like, oh yeah, definitely. I definitely want to major in education. Right now, my stress level is probably at a 6.
I wanted to say a 9. At this point, I would say a 10. I am very stressed because there's a lot of things that I have to do.
Based on a 1 to 10 scale on how stressed I am with everything, I would say a 9 because I have to work on the applications and the EOP questions and then my PIQs.
So those stress numbers were because that was at the end of last school year, March of 2021, as those young people were applying to college. Dr. Griffith, I think we saw some of those safety schools in there too, right? Johns Hopkins.
Yes, we saw a few safety schools, UCLA.
I mean, talk about belief in yourself and the expectation of going to college. Those are young people that are dreaming big and are ambitious. Sarah, we'll talk about what makes your program so effective, but first I am just dying to know, where did those kids go to school? Where are they on campuses now?
So we are, those are some very high achieving students that we have. And, most of them have been with us for a long time. Our programs start in 3rd grade. So a lot of them have been learning the path and what is necessary to really be accepted into these campuses. So I'm very happy to report one of those students is at San Diego State. One of the students is over at UCLA. And 2 of them are at the University of San Diego, which I'm really excited about because one of the students you saw did receive a 4-year NSF scholarship for going into a STEM major. So his, I believe it's a $40,000 scholarship for 4 years to USD. So we're really, really proud of him. And that is because he was part of the Anchor STEM program, a partnership that we have with the University of San Diego. And he was able to actually start a science class in his senior year of high school. And that really is what earned him that scholarship.
You must be so proud to see your scholars going on to such big things. That's fantastic, Sarah. So my question is the same as for Dr. Griffith. How? What is it? What are kind of the key factors that make your programming so effective in getting these young people on the track to college and beyond?
So we really are talking about starting early. As Dr. Griffith said, we wish we could start at age 0, right at the beginning, but we start in 3rd grade, which we all know that it is about literacy rates. It is about students understanding, learning how to read. At 3rd grade is when their life changes. They have to really be able to read in order to learn. And if a student starts to fall behind, that is when they start becoming more disappointed in school, likely to not even graduate high school. So for us, 3rd grade is the most important year for them. It is where we focus on the academics. Those elementary school years, 3rd, 4th, and 5th are really, for us, they're very, very intense in the academic. There's the tutoring support. Students are really, it is keeping in touch with the families, getting those report cards from the school. I think one of the things that we have as BLCI is, we always tell the families and the students, your grades are given to you by your school. So we work with the schools closely. We partner with them. There is something going on with the student. We encourage the families to go talk to the teachers, to talk to the school. And if they need the support on how to do that, we're able to provide that with them. So for us, our intervention is very intense early on. And when we look into those junior high school, middle school years, 6th, 7th, and 8th, that's really where we start talking to them about careers. And we really start working with them, even understanding themselves, their own personal histories, because we know that builds a lot of self-confidence. If they understand where they came from, they really have a view of where they can go in the future. And really doing things like working with strong interest inventory, working with strengths finders, things that really identify what a student is built for, their aptitude. So for us, it's very intense programming. And of course, in high school, it's making sure that they are in a very rigorous program. We are able to really encourage families to make that transition to schools that provide that academic rigor. And by those last 2 years of high school, we really do want that dual enrollment, because we know that a student who can take a high school class and a college course is highly likely to graduate from college.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that probably also helps kind of bring down the anxiety level around starting college, right? For young people who are first in their family to go to college, graduating high school already knowing that they can manage college level coursework.
Yes, and one of the things that we really focus on is, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, they'll get campus tours. We'll find an alumni at one of the local campuses who will give them a tour of either San Diego State, UCSD, USD, Point Loma, and really encourage them to see themselves there. And by the time they get to high school, they've gone to these campuses several times. And, in high school, we do take them up to Los Angeles to really take a look at, those campuses, USC, UCLA, the ones that of interest. And by junior year, they're up in the Bay Area, also visiting 10 to 11 campuses in a week to really get the feel for what they look like. This year's junior class went to fell in love. Most of them fell in love with UC Santa Cruz. So I think for the class of 2023, we might see some of them going up north.
Oh, that's fantastic. I want to address a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. We've got a question from Davida Hutchell, and one that I want to call out is recruitment strategies. So how do, for Preuss and BLCI both, how do scholars find their way into your programs?
Well, we have an amazing word of mouth that has happened over the years at Preuss. And so we have several siblings that actually repopulate the campus of Preuss. We have sibling priority in our blind lottery from 7th grade to 12th grade, but we don't do it in the 6th grade, or we probably could fill half of our class with families. So we do recruitment by going out into the community. Before COVID, we actually went to school sites. We made presentations for all the schools that would allow. We do the mailers now to about a 8,000 piece mailer to 4th graders, 5th graders in the areas that we want to target, where we know the income levels and the college going levels would meet our mission and vision. And so we target those communities in particular to have them apply. And we also work with educators to have them talk about the programs. Of course, we share scholars with BLCI. Some of the same scholars in BLCI are Preuss scholars as well. Reality Changers and other community programs where we like to go and speak to those families to let them know about the Preuss school. We want to do more of that as we are coming back into the in-person environment to continue recruitment of getting our scholars to the Preuss school.
Oh, fantastic. And Sarah, and especially now that you're in different neighborhoods too, have expanded beyond just Barrio Logan, how do young people and families hear about your program and find their ways to BLCI?
Very similar to what Dr. Griffith described. We are word of mouth is our biggest. Parents really are so happy with the program that they call their friends, they tell their as siblings to get the nieces and nephews in the program. We also do really target siblings. We, as I mentioned earlier, we really believe in making this is about sending an entire family to college, really encouraging this to be a culture that thrives at home. And so for us, we do have priority for siblings, but a lot of this also has to do with where we are in the community. We have some feeder schools in Barrio Logan. We really work with Perkins and Burbank Elementary. In El Cajon, we work with all the elementary schools there as well. And in Chula Vista, we're in the Castle Park neighborhood. So we do look at Castle Park Middle, Castle Park Elementary.
Great. And you've both spoken to kind of the highly collaborative nature of this work of creating systems and structures around students, right? It's not just the school, it's not just the one after school program, but I know that you work in close collaboration with many other partners. And one of the questions in the chat is, are there partnerships with our fantastic community colleges?
Absolutely. Number one, I'm a beneficiary of a transfer student. I was at Mesa College after I graduated from Patrick Henry, and then I transferred to UC San Diego. And we strongly encourage our scholars to use the transfer path because we know it works. I'm a living witness, right? But now, even more so with the Promise Agreement, I met with Chancellor Cortez, who's the new chancellor of the Community College District in San Diego recently, just to ensure that all the initiatives that they're putting in place, our charter schools and charter scholars are included. And he gets it because he's a former principal, he's a former charter leader, and he has assured me that not only are those programs available for charter students, but that we're going to create a feedback loop for our charter leaders to make sure that our scholars can get access to community college courses for free while they're in high school now, and setting up other memorandums of understanding with the community college district where they can take those college courses on the campus of the high schools. So we value those partnerships because we know that minimizes the financial burden when you can make that transfer. What's essential is that we don't allow our scholars to get caught in that black hole. I shouldn't call it black because that's not positive, kind of a gray hole of not making their way to college, where they drop out of community college and they don't make that switch. And so we want to make sure that we follow up with our alumni, which I'm sure BLCI does as well, to ensure that they move from Mesa to UC San Diego, for example, and then of course to graduation. So those partnerships are very, very important and we value them.
Fantastic. We are also a big proponent of community colleges in my household. My husband was a community college transfer to a four-year degree, and he graduated with very little debt. So
right,
it's a path that works for many. Pam, I want to turn to you to share a little bit about the San Diego Foundation's scholarship program in response to a couple of the questions. We've had a question in the chat about funding. We know that cost of college is a barrier. And I know that a lot of the scholarship students that receive support from our scholarships program go on to start in community colleges. Could you share a little bit about our own scholarships program?
Yeah, since 1997, the San Diego Foundation has implemented a scholarship program that has helped thousands of scholars to move forward through either the two-year university or four-year university. In total, it's about $40 million that has been given to students in the form of scholarships. Just this last year, for example, we probably awarded 1,100 or so students scholarships, totaling $3.4 million. And that makes our organization the largest private scholarship provider outside of the universities in San Diego County. So it is a significant contribution to helping students who want to continue on to college. And I wanted to just highlight something that I think is also very important, because what we are really all invested in is developing skilled talent. Our local economy depends on skilled talent. And what we are seeing, and this is through research at San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation, that roughly 83% of the new jobs that are going to be created here in San Diego County will require some sort of post-secondary education. So they will require a degree, and whether that degree is obtained by stopping first at a two-year institution or going on to a four-year institution, the reality is most jobs that are being created in San Diego County are going to require that four-year degree. And so in order to support the local economy, and to help fill those positions that are both available today and into the future, it's imperative that we are preparing more of our students to be a part of that workforce. And then we don't have to rely so heavily on people coming to San Diego, but really providing opportunities for people who are right here in our city, who will go off to college, and ideally they'll stay local and go to UC San Diego, our alma mater, or San Diego State, or USD, take advantage of the great institutions that are here, but even for those who choose to leave our region, to have opportunities for them to come back, I think is what we are very focused on. And so it is a cycle that is one that we are trying to support, developing that talent that is going to be needed for the workforce locally and today and into the future. And I think it's also, important to realize that, as you mentioned earlier, Katie, roughly 6 in 10 students continue on to college. But as we're looking at the changing demographics of our region, more and more of our student body are Latinx students or Hispanic students. And when we look at the percentage of those students who are continuing on to four-year institutions, the numbers are not as high, the percentages are not as high. And what is so important about the programs that both Dr. Griffith and Sarah are supporting and leading in our region is that it is reaching into those homes and to those communities where college has not been the norm in that family just because of circumstances, but changing that norm and creating opportunities for those first-generation students to be a part of the success story that is our region. If we don't do that, we're missing not only an opportunity, but we're not serving our community well.
Thank you, Pam. I think that's such an important point to keep centered as we're talking about this work, is that college isn't the end point here, right? College is what sets us up, is what sets anyone up for a successful life and career, and yes, drives our regional economy.
That's right.
Transitions us really nicely into something I want to make sure we don't miss today, which is that this work is so important and needs to grow to reach more. So I know that BLCI has grown from serving just Barrio Logan to serving neighborhoods and communities all across the county. Preuss has grown from, Dr. Griffith, correct me if I'm wrong, has grown from 150 to 850, just under 850 students. And that work is transformational and life-changing in those students' lives. And there are more students in our region that are lacking access to opportunity, but have limitless potential. What does scaling look like for Preuss and for BLCI? When you think about how you hope to grow, what do you picture? What's your big vision?
First, I'd say scaling looks like an elementary school in the neighborhoods where our scholars come from, and that we're going earlier into the community and providing, like we said, that self-efficacy, that focus on numeracy, literacy, college and career, not college or career. And we're starting these institutions earlier and hopefully building a teacher pipeline of diversity that will support these schools. But secondly, a Preuss school at every UC campus in the state of California, and perhaps other institutions, any Cal State school as well, and maybe even private institutions, where we're creating these pipelines so opportunities for scholars of color are exponential.
So you're talking about the dream is to build out kind of a feeder system to get younger, to get them onto college campus kind of as early as possible.
Absolutely.
Sarah, what's the next phase of growth for BLC? This has been an exciting time of transformation and change and growth for you already, but how up if resources were no issue, what would you hope to see?
I would see one of these buildings in every deserving neighborhood, accessible. I think we think about, transportation. I know, we have some of those students who do take an hour to go to Preuss and come back. But we want them to come into their community and actually see this, a physical space that really has that idea of college, that the neighborhood can really see that there are people there that live there that are going to college, that have these dreams. And for us, it really is about sustaining our programs, really having it in the communities that deserve it, growing, being able to serve more students, of course. I think that's always the goal for us, is that we can serve as many students as possible. The challenge that we do have is it is very expensive, the work that we do. I think that's one of the things when you want quality output, you do need to invest in it. And for us, even scaling means even working closer with the school partners that we already have. We have some of our sites are actually located at the school, which makes, of course, transportation accessible. And so for us, it would be, not just having these community sites, but even having sites at the schools for those who have bigger challenges with transportation.
Sarah, thank you for raising that important point that I think is really critical for an audience of funders to hear, that this work sometimes is expensive. Deeper work is more expensive, but sometimes it's not about just how many lives you can touch with surface level work, but for this kind of programming that starts early, that involves parents, and that really has big goals, that creates that kind of dream for students that we saw in the video, it takes deep work, and it's worth investing in that more robust, comprehensive work rather than just the programs that touch lives in less meaningful ways that may have overall higher kind of recipient of service numbers. So thank you for calling it out. I know that saying that work is expensive sometimes can be a little bit challenging, but it's important. Pam, in terms of scaling work at the foundation, our work does span the entire kind of educational continuum.
You were reading my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I wanted to just make sure our listeners we're aware of, that our vision for just, equitable, resilient communities really requires us to look at the entire continuum from cradle to college. And all of the programs that we are running through our education and inclusive growth programs really look at that from every different vantage point. We're supporting early child care and education initiatives. We are partnering now with the Dr. Seuss Foundation on literacy programs for children. We're very, very committed to expanded learning programs, which you've heard a lot about recently. The pandemic really affected students unequally. And one of the things that we've been trying to do is to help with some of the recovery that is necessary for students who were the furthest behind in academically as a result of the pandemic. And for many of those students, they were already behind. Their schools were already underperforming. And so bring in a catastrophe like the pandemic, and their outcomes are very disproportionate in comparison to that of other students. So we're really being very intentional about our support and the work that we're doing with our educational partners to bring about opportunity for students, regardless of their zip code, regardless of their parents' story, regardless of whether or not they know what they want to do when they're 30 or 40 or 50 years old. A lot of our kids aren't able to dream because they've never experienced the things that allow us to dream. They've never had those college visits that Dr. Griffith talked about, or that Sarah is creating for her BLCI students. And until they are able to do that, it's hard to see themselves as doctors or educators or engineers or any of those careers, those lucrative careers that can change the trajectory of their lives and that of their families. So we're really very intentional about creating opportunities for students to be supported at every level of the continuum, all the way through college. So they can then come back and be the mentors that these ladies depend on in their schools and in their programs to really guide that next generation, so that at some point, we've captured everyone. Everyone is part of that village that we're talking about that is so essential to really changing lives here in our San Diego region.
Thank you, Pam. That vision from all three of you is absolutely worth the work that it takes to strive for. That vision of that strong village supporting young people, every kiddo dreaming big, seeing their future at college and in successful career. And I am just so proud of the partnerships that we see with not just the three of you, but across our community, such strong cross-sector partnerships. One more thing that we talk oftentimes about the need for financial investment, which is so important, and we of course highly encourage. We don't always talk about the opportunities for advocacy too. I know that especially when we talk about education, policy is important. With our audience of donors, of community leaders, what do you think a highly engaged audience of folks that are connected, that have friends, that are engaged in our community, what would you ask folks to do to help drive policy change, to help make sure that our elected officials are behind us on this vision for the future?
I would start by, Sarah, I saw your mouth open. You go first.
This question is very exciting for me because I think about, really at the national level, you talk about financial aid increases and things like the Pell Grant, and really distributing federal aid throughout the country and making sure that students have the resources, because we could get them to college, but finances are key to keeping them there. And, part of it is also, supporting our schools, because we, BLCI does partner with a lot of schools, but those are 6-7 hours that our students spend at school. And that is the key, is really making sure that we distribute the resources properly, that teachers have quality training, that they have constant professional development. Education changes constantly. And, there are new ways that we can teach students how to learn. and investing in our teachers and our educations and resources for them. I'm sure Dr. Griffith, you can give us a lot more, but for me, it's that advocacy at the level of financial aid and making sure our students can stay in college.
Totally agree. Debt-free college, right? With something creative, like if you get a loan and you're studying in education, that you go back and you work in a school and then your debt is forgiven. So that we're repopulating our professions, but we're also not giving a free handout, right? That you agree to work in whatever area you are, you go, once you get that career, then your debt begins to come off because you're working in that profession, or you've come back to the city where you work, but something creative like that, so that we can make that more accessible. And that college debt it's not something that we relish, and it shouldn't happen, because we have enough creativity and resources to make that a reality. Number two, advocate for the elevation of the teaching profession. Teachers are not paid enough, and that's why we don't have as much talent in the teaching ranks as we need, because you can go make a higher wage living as an engineer or another career as opposed to an educator, but no one ever gets to where they go without being a teacher, without having a teacher, right? And so we need to advocate for the teaching profession to be elevated in our nation, so that our teachers can be paid. I know it's a dream, but just like an athlete, right? Like a professional athlete, why aren't we making that kind of money? Because we are really on the front lines here. And if we elevate the profession, we can have much more talent coming into the pool. And we're predicting shortages coming down the line. There's already a gap of teachers of color. So I believe that we can advocate for that at the highest levels to transform what our nation is currently experiencing with the teaching ranks.
And Pam, any last thoughts on this question?
Thank you very much for raising that point, Dr. Griffith. We are also investing at the San Diego Foundation in programs to help diversify teacher pools in San Diego County, because we recognize that the very significant impact that the lack of representation has on students of color. And if we can do anything to help bring more people back to our region, qualified teachers who reflect the students in those classes, we know that it is an investment that is going to pay enormous dividends over time.
Right. Thank you all three of you for your time today, but more importantly, for the critically important work that you do to ensure more equitable access to education for all young people in our region. I think I speak for all of us at the San Diego Foundation when I say that we are so grateful for the work that you do and proud to work in partnership with you. And of course, we always like to close a conversation like this with a word to what those who are with us can do to help be part of the change and part of that vision of the future that we want to see. Please, if you are able, consider a donation to BLCI or to Preuss or to one of the educational programs at the San Diego Foundation. What Jenny just dropped in the chat was a link to our donor portal. We know we have some fund advisors here. If you feel so moved, you can log in and recommend a grant to Preuss or BLCI right now. BLCI, Sarah, thank you especially for being here with us today, because your big fundraising event is tomorrow and anyone can still register to attend to see the young people that they serve and connect with that community of donors who care so deeply about that work. If you are free tomorrow night, it should be a wonderful event at Julep. Advocate for policy change. We know that it takes policy to get this work done and to do things like ensure that we are addressing the shortage of teachers coming down the pike, that we have teachers of colors in the classroom, and that cost is no longer an insurmountable barrier for young people in our community and across the country. And if you would like to talk more about these issues, about the work that's being done, please know that the San Diego Foundation staff of experts is here and happy to discuss at any time to support connection and community engagement and help you understand how you can be a part of this change. So please know that we are here and happy to be your partner in philanthropy. And to everyone with us today, thank you for joining us for this important conversation. A recording of this session will be made available on our website if you'd like to either review or share it with folks who weren't able to join us. And we are so grateful to everyone in this room for your partnership and for your commitment to our community. Thank you. Be well, everyone.